everyone. This is John Ryan, of course. Thank you for joining me today. Rob Veno will be in the house shortly, permitting that his other work and shows don't run overtime, but we're going to go here for about 20 or 30 minutes. And in the chat room, if you want to ask a question on a specific game, feel free to do that. I'll dig up some analytics if they are available and pertinent, and we'll take it from there. So I'm glad you took the time to join me. I'm going to talk a little bit about the NFL here, and before I do, here is Rob Veno.
John, does this microphone sound okay?
It sounds wonderful.
Okay.
How do I sound?
I can hear you loud and clear.
That's good.
Oh, but I have an echo on my end.
Okay, I was just double checking, so I think that echo is probably gone now.
Beautiful. It is.
Right.
Yep.
How's everything going?
I am good, buddy. How are you? Just busy. You know how
well.
it is.
It's been a while that you and I haven't caught up in a while here, but glad we are now.
Yeah. It's just, like you said, schedules cross, and we're heading into that time of year, right? Hopefully we can get something done with all of us before these tournaments start. It's always nice to hash things out with everybody, but like I say, you know how it is. We're jumping from show to show, and it just gets hectic. It gets hectic.
Yeah, it does. Some people have been asking about my new cosmetic appearance, being that my two front teeth are kind of missing, but it's nothing to worry about. It's related to, my little battle 20 years ago. So this is a normal thing, being a survivor this long. There's not too many, cases that they have to rely on. So I'm recording history, and hopefully that'll help some other people down the road,
Yeah.
But I will have, I'm very, fortunate too. I will say this: I'll be able to get implants into the jawbone, so that's huge. It was scary when they were getting loose. I'll be honest. You don't know what's going to happen, and they came out on Christmas Day. How about that for timing?
Yeah.
But anyway, for those that are looking, I didn't get punched by my wife. I didn't get hit by a car. I didn't get hit by like. Most guys would have an excuse like that, right, Rob? I mean, God knows what Tony Finn would say if he didn't have his two front teeth.
Well, I don't know. For Tony Finn, it could be a lot of things.
Yeah, it's but everything is good. The people, I appreciate the concerns and the, like, what happened, John? What happened? Well, it wasn't that I lost a bet and punched myself in the face. Although February was very brutal for me, I will admit it. It was one of the worst months I can remember, and probably I can't remember. But as you know, Rob, it's a grind. And when you have a bad month, we usually pop back with a big one. And March has been 7 straight years in a row where I've kind of caught fire. And you and I have done some great in-game betting too during the tournament. I'll never forget that game with what was it, Creighton and Iowa, I believe. And we middled that thing with about 35 points of room and hit both sides. And then, of course, we had the Oral Roberts game with the free throws against Ohio State, and they won. And I had bet that on the live in-game on the show, and that was fun. And I'm just excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, it gets here, John, and then it goes so quickly, right? You anticipate it, and we work. And the majority of us spend countless hours. Sleep gets, put on the back burner a little bit here at this time of year. And then before you know it, that first weekend is over. And I think we all get the feeling like, oh my God, this thing is just about done. And you pick it back up for the Sweet 16. But then it becomes somewhat anticlimactic by the time you get to the very last game. And then we hit baseball. But while it's happening, there's no bigger rush, I don't think, than these conference tournaments, which are beginning now. We're about to see a bunch of buzzer beaters and crazy wins, bad beats, whatever you want to call them. Hopefully more tickets cash than not cash. But yeah, it's an awful lot in a small condensed period of time. So, we're here to give you the best advice we can give you.
Yeah, that's for sure. I that's the thing with February. I can't remember having. I'm not going to call them bad beats either. The best example was the game against Penn State and Rutgers, and that one stung. That was the game. Yeah, that was Rutgers, right, where they were up 19 and lost. and they didn't
Right.
score a bucket in the last 9 minutes. And of course I'm watching that game, and I usually don't watch the same game from start to finish, but up 19, 15 minutes to go, I felt pretty damn smart. And then as soon as it got down to 5, you can feel it. You can feel you're not going to win this bet, but you're then not going to be stupid and bet Rutgers and try to hedge your bet. It's your bet's done and over with, and it's a loss. That's it. Move on. But I've had many of those where I've been winning, not like bad picks where they're just getting destroyed. Just a lot of those double-digit leads that have just vaporized. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and it lends itself, John, nowadays to playing first halves rather than full game. It seems like when you play the first half, you lose the first half, but win the full game because you didn't play the full game. When it's going bad like that, those are the types of things that happen. It's tough to make those calls on, is the team going to be hot early? Are they going to come back late? All kinds of things. But we do, in college basketball especially, you see these games where these teams look tremendous, and next thing you know, they can't put it in the ocean. And it happens on a nightly basis. So we'll see here. And I think, in the case of Rutgers, this is always funny to me because in the case of Rutgers, because they're known as a defensive-oriented team, you'll get the standard prototypical, Rutgers locked up Penn State defensively for the last 9 minutes and Penn State didn't score. But yet when you watch a game like that, you see a lot of open shots that just don't go down. So the old axiom in basketball that in order to win, you have to make shots. It sounds so simple. It sounds so first grade-ish, and it is. But basically, that's all it comes down to. Make some shots. I mean, whether they be free throws, whether they be putbacks off of an offensive rebound. How many times you see guys miss layups and you think, oh, my God, how could you miss that layup? You're 6 feet 9 inches tall and you're right there. So it happens. It makes losing tickets out of winning tickets out of losing tickets. Always somebody happy, somebody sad. But like I say, hopefully this time of year, we've learned enough. And obviously the odds makers have too, right? It's not easy going up against these guys every single day, to your point of when you're in the business like we are and you've bet every single day, people don't realize we lose on days too. You're not going to win 365 days a year. I hate to break it to folks, but it just doesn't happen. And you have to learn how to deal with that. I mean, I think your point about, hey, listen, my bet was a loss. You just got to eat it as a loss. Don't compound it by going after it twice, 3 times, 4 times, which a lot of people will get angry and do. In-game betting's a very nice thing, but it's not, there's instances to use it and instances to stay away from it for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, the lines are moving awful fast in the NFL draft, too. I don't know if you've been following that, but in the aftermath of that Super Bowl, we can touch upon that too, because I haven't had a chance to have you on the show to even talk about your takeaways with the Super Bowl. Maybe let's do the Super Bowl first, and then the draft things that I've been seeing. But that game had the potential. I felt like I was watching Kansas City and Cincinnati the year before. That final 5 minutes, both defenses were gassed, and I don't know why you have to call that penalty then. I don't even know if the Eagles win the game. I was on the Eagles, so now I'm 18-6 in Super Bowls. That was a loss. But still, I think it took away from the fans. That the game just died then. It was so dramatic to that very point, at least in my opinion. And then all of a sudden, oh, my God, I got to put the popcorn away. It's over. I could have seen the field goal good for Kansas City, then Jalen Hurts going down the field and scoring too soon. Mahomes has enough time, comes back and wins the game. I would have much rather have seen that.
Yeah, I mean, to the point about the penalty, to the letter of the law, is it a penalty? Yeah, it is. Obviously, if Philly admitted as much, yeah, it sure pulled on the guy's jersey, but it was so minimal, John, and it didn't really affect the play whatsoever. Again, I don't want to say hate, but generally I don't like the answer, but the ball was uncatchable. In this instance, really, the ball was, even if he wasn't held, the ball was probably uncatchable. But like most Super Bowls, when you have the opportunity to make plays, you have to make plays, right? And for Philadelphia, I think they only have themselves. Well, two things I think are the reason why the outcome was what it was. One, Philly has themselves to blame, and you can't allow 65-yard punt returns. There's just no excuse for that at all. Guy takes, goes one way, turns back to the side of the field, and he's gone. That was brutal. There's no way. I mean, Quez Watkins, Jalen Hurts couldn't have run down the field and put it in his hands any better for a 1st and goal at the 8-yard line. He drops the ball. When you're playing Patrick Mahomes, you got to make those plays when they're there. And that's not even a miraculous circus catch. That's a catch that an NFL wide receiver's got to make in that circumstance. He didn't make it. Jalen's fumble that turned into a touchdown is painful because he played so terrific the entire game. And then I'll say this, second half, one guy on the sidelines was playing chess, and the guy on the other sideline, Jonathan Gannon, was playing checkers, because I never saw so many open receivers in my life. I mean, Jonathan Gannon had no idea which way Andy Reid was coming at him from. And boy, oh boy. I mean, Patrick Mahomes at one point had completed 9 passes in a row second half. And I think I could have thrown those 9 passes, honest to God. I mean, he's not dropping them in a bucket. He's just finding guys running free. So, listen, they had the benefit, as I heard and read afterwards, that Andy did have the benefit of some Doug Peterson help. Doug Peterson sent some tape to Andy Reid and said, listen, when you're on the goal line against these guys, here's what they do. And Andy Reid ran that. He said, we ran it in Jacksonville. Here's the tape. And we scored a touchdown on it. And Andy Reid ran it twice, once to each side of the field, and got 2 touchdowns out of it. So Jonathan Gannon's a head coach now. I mean, you live in this area. I can't figure it out for the life of me, but he got abused by Andy Reid. For me, just personally, on that day, it was probably the most profitable Super Bowl I've had in quite some time. I mean, because I wasn't on a side, but I did not see any way that game stayed under. I thought it was an off. Everything I bet was correlated to things going over. Devontae Smith's receiving yardage, the catches for Jerick McKinnon out of the back, all kinds of things on both sides, aside from game total. And then Philadelphia, let's congratulate Philadelphia on making us rich all season long by consistently going over their team total first half. It became so easy by consistently pushing the first half total itself over almost every game Jalen Hurts played. So, the game was decided by the smallest of margins, John. And I think where Philadelphia is concerned, they can look in the mirror a little bit. Just forget the penalty, look in the mirror just a little bit, and then say that, our defensive coordinator was no match for Andy Reid's offensive playbook.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, that's what it came down to. I was glad. I mean, it wasn't surprising to see the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator move on to head coaching jobs. I think that was widely expected, but I don't think the Eagles are going to necessarily miss them, that it's going to impact the team going forward. The team has great chemistry. And, with this upcoming draft, I have never bet the draft except for the one time. I think it was 2 years ago. The Prez actually did one, and it was publicly, he was talking about it on Twitter too, and it worked out perfect. And that's the only time. But this year I'm intrigued by it. And the reason I am intrigued by is the Colts, and I think they are the wild card. There's a lot of talk, I think, now that Houston's going to trade up for the number 1 so they can be assured to get their guy, whoever that guy is. One quarterback is 5'10" and a half officially. Buck 92. Yeah, I have concerns with that because, he's a great athlete. I'm not saying he's not the next coming of Joe Montana, but let's not forget that when Joe Montana played, the guys were a lot smaller and a lot slower. This game is blazing fast, where you have 250-pound linebackers that run faster than the running backs did during the Montana age. And that's the part that doesn't add up with me. That's Manny in the background, by the way, our proprietor. But I wouldn't go with him. I think there's too many other talented quarterbacks. There's talk that 4 of the first 5 are going to be quarterback. I would bet no on that. Uh, but I could see the Colts being the blockbuster trade and then taking the kid from Florida. Although that kid from Florida is very raw, look who the head coach would be. And the kid from Florida reminds me a lot of Jalen Hurts, except Jalen Hurts is thicker, and this kid will grow from Florida. So that's the. But how much are they going to have to pay? They're basically going to have to at least one number one, a number two this year, a number one next year, and a number three maybe, and then a number two and number four the following year. It's going to be a lot to jump up there and take it away from the Bears. But the Bears, I think, could still they're going to have the best draft, I think, because even sitting there at number 5 they are. They'll
Indianapolis
get their player. So they're clearly in the catbird seat. Philly, for what it's worth, the kid from Iowa on the defensive line. That the defensive line is getting a little bit aged for the Eagles. You know, how many more years does Fletcher Cox have, for example? But Sweat has been playing great. And you tie in a kid, let me see, I always mispronounce his name, Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. He would seem to fit in, you know, but we'll have to, wait and see because, the talk is, other players. But they had another quality defensive guy to shore up that defensive line and then keep them rotating like they did during the year. I think they're right back contending for the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia's in a really good spot. I mean, and again, we both live in this area, and we know that Howie Roseman is a guy that takes a lot of shots and then gets a lot of love because, like a lot of players' careers, he's so sporadic. He'll have a year where he does everything wrong, where signings and draft choices are concerned. I mean, the kid from TCU, Jalen Reagor, I mean, that was a total complete miss. When Justin Jefferson is running around for the Vikings now, possibly the best wide receiver in the NFC, and you're taking Jalen Reagor. So Howie's got some really bad marks on his resume, but last year, I mean, he's got a ton of good marks. He's put the team in a good position. Now, what they do in free agency probably dictates what they do in the draft, right? Because they've got some signings to take care of here. We don't know where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's going to end up. Hopefully he stays if they pay him, but if he doesn't, maybe they want to go secondary. We'll see. I think a lot of that will probably dictate what Philadelphia does with the 10 pick. Even if he wants to back up and acquire more and only back up to like 17 or 18 and still get a good guy. Like you say, they're in pretty good shape as is. And they drafted the 2 kids from Georgia last year on the defensive line and Nakobe Dean at linebacker, so you can install them. This season, they've got a year of the system under their belt. I don't know if they'll change systems now that Jonathan Gannon's gone. I doubt it. I think they'll probably maintain what they have. So, yeah, the Eagles are in really, really good shape. As far as the draft itself is concerned, obviously it took a turn yesterday with the news out of Georgia. Now we'll see. Carter's back at the combine today, and we'll have to wait till the legal system clears things up here to see what the outcome is going to be. But he's being interviewed by a bunch of teams today. He claims his innocence, of course, and maybe he's correct. So we'll have to find out. But, you're talking about the kid that a lot of people consider to be the best player in the draft overall, period, end of story. And that could have been who the Bears might be looking at when they move back, when they move down, trade out because we can still get them. And now maybe, you don't want them because, I think of Tunsil, the offensive tackle for Ole Miss, who on the night of the draft supposed to go top 3, ends up not going till 13 because in his case, false rumors were put out there about him. And teams shy away from this legal stuff, John. You know it as well as I do, and they don't want to be part of anything that could look bad aesthetically where these guys are concerned. So we'll see. There's a lot of time before the draft happens to clear that particular instance up. If not, Will Richardson from Alabama probably goes. But the quarterback situation is crazy. And I would say this. If you're going to trade up and you're going to trade up to get Anthony Richardson, or you're going to trade up to get Will Levis, the former Penn State guy. Remember, Will
Yeah, that's
Levis,
right.
they let him go in favor of Sean Clifford, right? So Penn State didn't see it at the time. But I would say this: you better have patience with either one of those guys. Don't be drafting them thinking that they're going to quarterback this year, because Anthony Richardson, I mean, I could stand in front of that guy 35 yards downfield and just stand there helplessly and let him aim at me, and he might hit me 5 out of 10 times. The other 5 he'd probably miss. So he's got some accuracy issues, and I think your comparison to Jalen Hurts is a really good comparison, because remember, when Jalen Hurts was in college, his accuracy was not the best. And when the Philly drafted him in the second round, to a T, almost all of us here in Philadelphia were like, what in God's name are they doing drafting this guy who can't even, has no accuracy whatsoever. But the work ethic on Jalen Hurts is incredible. And now you see the way he throws the football.
Yep.
I mean, there's nobody in the league that throws a better football than he does at this point in time. So you can develop into it. Whether or not Anthony Richardson has Jalen Hurts' work ethic, I'm not sure. I don't think Will Levis is a starting NFL quarterback. We're going to find out, but I've seen too much of him to see that he's so reliant on his running, and he's built like a linebacker. But in the NFL, you take some savage hits. I think you said it best about Bryce Young. You're going to take some. And in comparison with him, John, I think you have to take Bryce Young and look at the build of Tua Tagovailoa and see how many concussions Tua's had already, being thrown around like a rag doll. And that's what you worry about with Bryce Young. They get to him in the pocket. If you get drafted by a team with no offensive line and you take a few of those like Tua's taken, this guy's built pretty much the same. Tua might even be a few pounds heavier. So he's a great arm. He's got great arm talent, maybe the best arm talent of all these guys. CJ Stroud's right there with him, but I don't know. I think you're taking a lot of chances with all these guys, right?
Oh, I think so too. I don't think it's one of those, juggernaut quarterback drafts. It's just that there's so many teams that need a leader beyond under center. The other concern I have with the height is at the NFL level now, your offensive linemen are, your tackle is 6'7", and he's basically, a wall. A lot of quarterbacks historically, Drew Brees comes to mind, that literally threw the ball to a space and sometimes probably didn't see where he was actually throwing it, but in his mind, he knew the receiver was going to be there. So then it worked beautifully. Not the strongest arm in the world by any stretch of the imagination, like not even close to what, even Brady had the strong arm still his last couple of years. But that's the other concern, is that, now you're not in the college level. Everybody is huge and fast. And is he going to be able to see if they don't create passing lanes for him? And then if they don't, it could be not good. The other two guys, Levis is what, 6'4"? The kid from Florida is 6'4", and they're both 235. That's kind of like a Roethlisberger when he was a rookie, and everybody said, "Oh my God, he's huge." Well, now that seems to be the prototype. So I remember too. You triggered something with Jalen Hurts. I remember the Philly radio stations talking about using him as a slot receiver, that they were drafting him to change him up and put him in the slot. Amazing, isn't it?
And it's a tribute to him and that work ethic again, because you go back and we watch a ton of college football, right? It's part of the business. But you go back to Alabama. Remember, he got benched for Tua because he couldn't complete a pass. He went to Oklahoma. He was a little bit better, but not tremendous. And when he first came to Philadelphia, he was not tremendously accurate. But now, I mean, he hits guys on stride consistently, and he's the ultimate dual threat, which is what you're looking for. If you're drafting Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, you're looking for a dual threat quarterback. That's what you think you have. And the difference is crazy. The top two, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, have accuracy and throw better footballs than the other two do. The other two are better runners. So it's like you don't have the combination of both with any of these guys. You've got one or the other. In my mind, if I was going to choose, I would probably choose CJ Stroud. But the knock on CJ Stroud is going to be, look at what these Ohio State quarterbacks have done when they've gotten to the NFL. Now, Justin Fields showed some signs last year that maybe, talent outweighs what is said to be. And we see it every week, is a simplified playbook at Ohio State. When you get to the NFL, playbook's a big jump. I don't know. Kentucky was no great shakes either, right? I mean, in Drew Brees' case, John, real quick, and I'll wrap it up. He came from an offense under Joe Tiller at Purdue, which was just built on timing, like you mentioned, throw to his space. And he came from that, and that's what he knew. And it takes countless hours and reps between you and your receivers to develop it. Again, he had the work ethic, and we don't get to interview these kids. That's the one thing. We can only talk on what we've seen. We don't get to sit in the room across the table and ask Anthony Richardson questions, ask Will Levis questions, make them walk to the chalkboard and show us what they've learned, what they know. So it's hard to really get to sit here and make opinions with conviction, because we don't know. We honestly don't know. All we know is what the talent is. If it was me right now, I would say Stroud. If it were me, I'd be happier with one of the two defensive guys. But I agree. See where it ends up.
I definitely agree. Chicago would be dumb doing that, but that's their guy that they want. Obviously, the defensive player, Will Anderson, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit there number one and take him when you're being offered all this other assets, I mean, it'd be ridiculous if they decided not to do the trade. They'll trade with somebody. I think the most bold one would be the Colts trying to trade up, and then they're not such a good organization right now. This would have to work. It would have to work, or otherwise they're going to become the doormat. So a lot on the table for them.
Yeah, it's problematic for them. It really is, because whoever they pick, they're going to expect to step in day one and be their starting quarterback. And just the back and forth here with you, can people watching can probably see that. I don't know that I have faith that any one of them is going to be a surefire, game one, step in there and play. These guys need a little bit of time. We'll find out. Side note, I'll be there this year in Kansas City for the draft. I've been to about 8 of them already, so we're going to make the trip out. My son's wife actually is from the area, Lee Summit, a little suburb outside KC, and that's where the draft is being held this year. So we're going to combine visit and draft as one. So, it'll be fun. Like I said, I've been to a bunch of them. They've really changed the way the draft is, done now for fans. But yeah, it's always a good time to get there and just see things live.
Absolutely. I'll give out a quick best bet here that I actually already bet at the window. It's an 8 unit on a scale of 1 to 10, which is the most common one that I give out for those that are listening for the first time. So last night I was on the Sixers, and a lot of concern from clients and friends. Embiid's not playing. Well, the numbers are the numbers, and that's what I'm trying to teach people. You're betting numbers. You're not betting mascots. You're not, betting the injury report. You're betting these numbers that over time produce profits. Not every day, but over time. So that one worked out pretty good. But tonight we're going against them. They're playing on back-to-back nights. I haven't seen the last status on Embiid, but even if he does play, I still like Dallas here at -3. Betting on teams that have lost their last 2 games and lost to the current opponent in their previous meeting, in a game where the home team is currently priced between 3.5-point favorite and a 3.5-point dog. That's going 38-20 for 65.5% winning bets over the last 5 seasons without one single losing season. So keep it in mind, it's one pick. There's a whole season to make money. You don't make all the money in the season on one pick. You have one, Rob?
Very true. Yeah. And to the point about Philadelphia, Joel Embiid, I saw about 45 minutes ago listed as probable tonight, so he will go. It looks like he'll go. And why wouldn't he want to go? Because when you play Dallas, they run Dwight Powell out there at center, and night in and night out, Dallas gets killed at the rim. So if you're Joel and you want 35 more, you want some MVP consideration, you run out there and on a bad foot, you do what you can do against these guys that can't stop you. And real quick, to your point before that, the NBA this year is as crazy as ever, where if the injury report all of a sudden at 4:30 Eastern time or 6:30 Eastern time or 5 minutes before tip-off Eastern time, which is where we're located, Central Pacific for anybody else who's in those time zones. But if at that point in time your star player gets ruled out of the game, who cares? Bet them anyway, because these shorthanded teams win all these games this year. It's the weirdest year I've ever seen NBA wise. The personnel on the floor. I don't know if teams just figure we're going to kick their ass now because nobody's playing for them, and it just doesn't happen this season. It's been a really profitable angle. Don't have exact numbers in front of me. I just know from doing it every single day. If you're betting the shorthanded team, you're getting the best of the price, and in a lot of cases, you're getting outright wins anyway.
Like the Lakers last night. Granted, it was OKC, but the Lakers won without AD and LeBron, and maybe
and D'Angelo Russell. They were very, very short-handed last night. So, I mean, it's been a true case this year where that's concerned. I will say that in the NBA tonight, I'm going to go ahead and side with the Clippers. Now, they started off 2.5-point favorites. They're up to 4 now. Obviously, you like it more at 2.5 than you did at 4, but the money has done what it's going to do. The Clippers come in off a loss, but the Clippers, to me, John, at this point in time, they're one of the 3 out of the West that is likely to end up in the NBA Finals, right? You look at Denver, Phoenix, and the Clippers. The Clippers may be the deepest of all of those teams at this point in time, the moves that they made during the trade deadline. And they seem to, I've watched them in the last 2-3 games. They seem to all be meshed pretty good. They played some tough opposition. And in fact, I think for the remainder of the season, LA has top 5 toughest schedule in the league. All that being put aside, Golden State still has the same list of injuries that they've had for quite some time here, and they just don't have the depth right now. Now, Jordan Poole went through a shoot-around for Golden State. It looks like he's going to play on a bad knee. But what they've been able to do at home is they've been able to overcome lesser opponents with, tremendous shooting by Klay Thompson over the course of the last 10 days. 12 threes, 13 threes. How many threes are you going to make? I just don't know that when you play a team with defenders like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George that happens tonight. I think LA will lock in on those guys, and there's probably an instance in an NBA game, there always is, an instance where a team decides, hey, for 6 minutes, 8 minutes, we're going to play lockdown defense, and that causes the separation to happen. So I'm on the Clippers tonight. I just think they're too deep, too talented, and they're coming in off a loss. Warriors just too banged up right now. I know they're playing with desperation to make sure that they have a spot in these playoffs or play in, but I like the Clippers here. So even at 4, I think it's worth it, John, to take a shot with LA. Golden State has had a nice home floor advantage this season. I just think they're in over their heads here tonight against a team that, we always have to worry about the mental state of a team coming in. Do they really want to play tonight? Do they not? That's just the nature of the NBA. But as we head down the final stretch of these last 20 games, where these playoff teams and seedings are concerned, I think we can count on pretty good 48-minute efforts out of teams like the Clippers. So that's the way I'll go here. Clippers -4.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It reminds me, too, of a simple fact that we saw Kevin Durant make his debut. He's obviously a much better team player, team-oriented, not me, than that gentleman down there in Dallas, Kyrie Irving. All due respect. Individually, he's one of the best players you could ever watch on a court. But for whatever reason, that chemistry with Doncic is not happening. They have a losing record. So I think, my point in saying that I don't care whether Embiid plays or not, it was more that I want both Doncic and Kyrie on the court. If one of them is not playing, they play a lot different so far. That would be a concern to me. And I'm not trying to, degrade any player in the NBA, but that combination has yet to find its chemistry. But maybe tonight they do. My model says that they do. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I'll say this, John, real quick, because I just had this discussion on the show I was on before I came in here, and they were asking me about that specific point, Doncic and Kyrie. And I think when you look around the West, at least to me, when you look around the West and point out the teams that I pointed out earlier, Clippers, Phoenix, Denver, and you look at their top 2 players, but their top 2 players all play different positions, right? Jamal Murray's a point guard, Jokic is a center. On the Clippers, Paul George is shooting guard, Kawhi's a small forward. They play different positions. In Phoenix, Devin Booker's a shooting guard. Durant's like a stretch four. Paul is a point guard, and Ayton is a center. They got four guys at different. In Dallas, you got two guys that play the same exact spot. They're both point guards, ball dominant point guards, and it's hard to make that happen right away. I don't think, at least from what we read and hear at this point in time, and I just heard a Kyrie Irving interview this afternoon, where he was kind of putting a little bit of the onus on himself, saying that he's trying too hard to be that guy because you have to live up to expectations when you first join in. I don't think that it's the personalities that clash here. I really don't. It seems like everybody likes everybody down there. That Kyrie's been a model citizen, which he usually is when he walks in. And for all his faults, there's been times in his career where Kyrie's been a great second fiddle. With Durant in Brooklyn, while they were both on the floor together, they looked good. With LeBron James in Cleveland, they won a title. In Boston for a while, it worked. But when you both play the same position, I just feel like, I'm not going to say it can't work, because I don't think it'll work this year. I think it takes way more time when you have two guys that do the same exact thing to get with each other. Here's the example I'll use real quick. You remember, obviously, when LeBron, got more time than the president would get in a presidential address to sit down on a stool and say, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, right? And he takes his talents to South Beach, and they go down there, and Dallas upsets them in that first NBA Finals. They lose. And Mr. Miami Heat, for all those years, their star, Dwayne Wade, had to come out and say, I'm going to turn the team over to LeBron. It's LeBron's team now, because they both did the same exact thing, right? They both had to have the ball. They both were the playmakers. And it worked after that. But one of these two, Kyrie or Luka, between the two of them on the floor, they're going to have to figure out what's best for them and how they feel most comfortable together. And then it can work. But to say it's going to work these last 20 games and into the Western Conference playoffs, I would be anti-Dallas. And again, when you don't even have a center that can stop anybody, it makes it even worse. It compounds the problem to the point where they are no more than a team that has to outscore people to win, right? They're a team that you're going to get 120. We have to get 121 on every night. They're capable, but are they going to win a playoff series that way? I'm not so sure. Probably not, right?
No,
and Jason Kidd is a good head coach because Jason Kidd's a Hall of Fame point guard. And maybe he can suggest to these guys, a couple of things, because they're both point guards by nature. But that trade, John, I don't know. I get what Dallas was trying to do, get a second star for Luka. He had complained a little bit behind closed doors. This roster isn't good enough. But to go out and get a guy that does the same thing, that's hard to work with when you're the head coach. That's hard.
Yeah, and plus the other players, I'm thinking of like, how would I react to this? I'd be my tendency would be I'd be watching to see who's got the ball, who's taking control of the offense, and we'll have to. That's one thing I want to watch tonight to see if the ball movement is crisp. Like in the half court set, I don't think they have too much of a problem there. But when they get these missed shot rebounds and try to get on the fast break, you can't have one guy running down the court waiting for the ball while the other guy's looking to score. I mean, I think that's your point.
Yeah, and I think they've done what Milwaukee has done, and you have to do it. You get these guys that can penetrate the lane and get to the rim, and you surround them with three-point shooters. Luka Doncic will get open shots for guys because, just like with Giannis, teams collapse on him, right? 2-3 guys see him going to the rim, and here they come, and then the kick out. And Kyrie's the same. They'll make the pass. In Milwaukee's case, with Chris Middleton, with Connaughton, with all these three-point shooters that they have, even Bobby Portis learned how to be a three-point shooter at 6'11", right? And Brook Lopez at 7 feet. If you get these guys, if Tim Hardaway Jr., the Reggie Bullocks of the world, if they can knock them down, offense is there. I don't doubt the offense, but boy, they're lousy on the defense. They weren't good defensively to begin with, and then they traded it all away to the Brooklyn Nets, all their defense. So we'll see. To me, Dallas is strictly an over team at this point in time. But the odds makers have priced us out of a lot of overs. You see these numbers every single day, 236, 241, 238, and they're just not getting there at this point in time. So NBA's been a tough ride.
Yeah, it is. And to your point, I see a total like that. Okay, I like the total. I like that take on that. So, just wait in the game. You don't even have to bet it pre-flop. Right. If you get low 220s in a game like that, that's where you get your bet in. And maybe you bet 50% of your normal bet size and see how it goes. But to pay up that kind of price when we know that the price is already inflated, it's kind of counterproductive because the volatility of an NBA game, as we know, is going to give you opportunities at least below 230, but you got to go for the extreme levels where the game is being played in the mud. And then you get that 222 and a half and just see how it goes then.
Totally.
A team like Dallas is not going to play. I mean, you're right. They're going to average 120 points per game over the last 20 games.
And to your point, the NBA in-game betting is good for all sports, right? But it's best for NBA betting. I mean, there's no sport like the NBA where you just scratch your head and say, my team just scored 41 points in the first quarter, and now they scored 17 in the second quarter. How in God's name does that happen? And to your point, the NBA provides in-game winning situations every single night. It's almost like if you're going to make money betting NBA now, that's what you do. You just in games see the number. All it is an algorithm, right? The algorithm just goes according to game score and time remaining, and you just bet anti what's going on because the NBA is what it is. There's a run coming or there's a drought coming. It's the most profitable to me, at least. It's how I, as a guy who bets these things, it's how I survive it. Just wait for the in-game stuff and go hammer that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, it was great catching up with you. I know you got some work to do, and I got to get some picks out to the the people that want them.
Yeah,
but we'll look to do these shows again because it's been so much fun over the years, and we just need the time to get the whole gang together. Tony Finn, Tony Mejia, Jesse Scholl. Even guys like Dr. Chuck want to come on when they can. So there's a lot of people that have reached out and said, let's get this thing started again. So we are. So it should be pretty good. Anyway, I'll sign off with my normal goodbye statement is that always remember to bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins be yours.